Good afternoon, guys. I am going to speak about power sharing today. This chapter, power sharing, begins with talks about, or we understand the word power sharing through two examples, namely Belgium and Sri Lanka. How one country really messed up the situation that they had, how one country really handled the situation or the problem each and every one of us encounter in our lives. So, we're going to see these two examples. First, let us understand what precisely was a problematic situation separately in Belgium and Sri Lanka. Let me talk about Belgium first. Belgium had a unique situation. Overall, in the country, listen carefully, their ethnic composition was as follows: 59% of the population was Dutch speaking, 40% of the population was French speaking, 1% was Germans. This was the composition nationally. However, in the capital of Belgium, which is Brussels, the composition was the exact reverse. Who was in the majority nationally? The Dutch, 59%. Here, in the overwhelming majority, were the French. Here, as in Brussels, 80% were French, 20%, 20% were Dutch. Now, the problem with the situation was, if some community is in a majority in one place and it mistreats the minority community there, the very same minority community who's been mistreated is in a majority in another place, and then there is that series of actions and counteractions that lead to needless conflicts and riots. That was what it was, and it remained to be seen how Belgium managed this unique composition. Also, Belgium was divided into two separate regions. One was Wallonia region, one was Flemish region. Wallonia region was dominated by the French-speaking population of Belgium, while the Flemish region was dominated by the Dutch-speaking population of Belgium. Coming to Sri Lanka and its ethnic composition. Sri Lanka's majority community was Sinhalese with a population of 74%. Also, apart from 74% Sinhalese, we had 18% Tamilians, 18% Tamilians. These 18% was divided into two parts. 13% were Sri Lankan Tamilians, 5% were Indian Tamilians. Normally speaking, most of the Sinhalese were Buddhists, while most of the Tamilians were either Hindu or Muslim. So, now let's see how each and every one of them coped up with this. Let us take the negative example first. Let us see what Sri Lanka did with its ethnic composition. I repeat, Sri Lanka had 74% Sinhalese, 18% Tamilians. 18% Tamilians comprised of 13% Sri Lankan Tamilians, 5% Indian Tamilians. Most of the Sinhalese were Buddhists, while most of the Tamilians were either Hindus or Muslims. What did the Sri Lankans do? They passed a series of majoritarian measures, especially three specific majoritarian measures. What were they? They made Sinhalese as the only official language of their country, although various other languages, including Tamil, were spoken. Sinhalese was made the only official language. Second, university positions and government jobs were reserved only for the Sinhalese. What was already the majority community, they only got reservations for university positions and government jobs. Also, the language that the Sinhalese spoke, Buddhist, it was decided that only Buddhism will be protected and fostered. Protected and fostered as in protected and developed. Now, what was the problem with these measures? To my mind, irrespective of how many persons speak which language, every language is a national language. So, Tamilian had to be, to give you an example, in Canada, far off, the third national language, status of the third national language is given to Punjabi. People who speak Punjabi, right? That is called respect for every kind of culture, every kind of tradition, irrespective of how much proportion of the population is living in your country. I'm sorry, excuse me. Also, the measure that only Buddhism will be protected and fostered was wrong. Every person, irrespective of his background, whatever religion he or she wills, in a democracy, a government is duty bound to protect the same. Also, there was no particular harm in having positions reserved for the Sinhalese, as long as there were positions reserved for all other communities in Sri Lanka, also including Tamilians. Or else there should not have been any reservations for anyone at all, and it should have been purely a merit-oriented process. So there were these three majoritarian policies. I repeat once more. Sinhalese was made the only official language of Sri Lanka. University positions and government jobs were reserved only for the Sinhalese. And finally, Buddhism was made as the only official language. What were the three consequences, or what were the consequences of the results or the negative repercussions of these majoritarian policies? Initially, there were a couple of demands that Tamil also be made as an official language. University positions and government jobs also be reserved for the Tamilians.